Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and you may recognise these. And if you don't recognise these, there will be a link in the description box. Either click the little V, or where the description is, it may say see more or read more, click on that, I'll put the link in there. A little while ago I shared a video where I made these backgrounds because I was actually working on covering a box that I wanted to do. I thought I'd share the background process. Well, I was actually inundated by requests saying, oh, you're going to share a video of how to make the box and that. And I wasn't going to because I couldn't quite work out how I was going to do it on screen. This isn't a big screen. I don't have a huge setup. But I think I've come up with a way of doing it. So please forgive me if it's a bit stop and start, because I'm going to have to stop and do a bit and then come and do another bit and do it. It'll make sense when you've seen it. And as I have a light source over there and no light source from this side, I'm hoping it's not going to be too dark on this side of anything I'm building. So please forgive me for that, but we'll do our best. As always, I'll do anything I can if you request it, as long as it's practical. Right, let's put these to one side. So first questions first, what is the box and why do I need it? The box is needed because of these. Now, these are all my prepared signature pages, which I keep in a drawer currently. And my problem is that because they're in a drawer, they're beginning to get damaged. And not only that, because they're in a drawer, I keep forgetting about them. I used to keep journal covers in the same drawer. However, I was getting damaged there, so I tend to make my journal covers only when I need them, and I want to go back to making them in advance. So anyway, so this needs a box, and it needs to be something that's visible, that I could take to a retreat, or actually just work on just by pulling it to my desk, and therefore I get on with it. So let's put these down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you bits of information, and I would say screenshot it, because it's the only way I can actually let you see stuff. So first of all, I used card. We call it grey board here in the UK. It's this thickness, it's 2 millimeters, that's the weight. There were 10 sheets when I bought it. I can't remember where I bought it. I want to say it must have been either eBay or Amazon, and this is what I'm using to make constructing my board. Now normally, as you know, I'll recycle boxes. However, the chances of getting a box that I can recycle with exactly the right dimensions is pretty slim. So occasionally I will make a box, and this is the board that I use. It's pretty sturdy, and when you've wrapped it in printed papers, it makes it even more sturdy. Okay, screenshot time. If you can screenshot that, it will give you all the dimensions that I'm using to create my box. Now this box fits my requirements. You can use the same techniques, just adjust these measurements as you see fit for your own box. So right, that's that bit done. Next thing, I went ahead and I've cut my pieces out and I've covered them with some spare 12 by 12. This is the inside of the box. Okay, I've decided I didn't like this patterning, but it's the inside, and the base on the inside is going to be black. So all the measurements are the same measurements as you've seen, and I will talk you through them. So let's explain first of all why the measurements are such. Okay, 6.5 inches wide. My journal covers are usually just about 6.5 inches wide. 12 inches long. That depth is actually the depth of my bookcase where this will slip into. Let's see, where's the side panels? The side panels are 12 inches long because obviously they need to be the length of the box. Can you see that? Yes, you can. Let's do this side, so I've got light shining on it. So they're the length of the box, and they're 5 inches tall because my pages are about 8 1/4, 8.5 tall. Anything shallower than 5 and they'll start flopping over the back. And I may actually at the end of the day put some dividers in, which will not be fixed into the box. They'll be like file dividers, so I can move them back and forth just to add extra support to the pages, but I don't think I'll need it, but just in case. Now, the ones that are slightly tricky and you need to remember are these are the end panels, as in what goes at that end, what goes at this end. Now, whereas the side panels, and I'm doing them inside out, I know that, are exactly the same dimension as the base lengthwise. The end panels, this is where it's going to get tricky for me, need to be wider than the board itself. So if I take this away, if I do it this way, you can see that the end panel, let's see if I lift this up for you, the end panel is marginally bigger in width than that. And the reason being is because this is 2 millimeters wide, and that extra bit means that all the corners are going to be flush. So when the complete thing, and I will show you as I go along, is completed, let's do it this way up. I told you this was tricky, guys. As you might be able to see there at that angle, all of the angles will fit together and I'll get a square edge. If I hadn't done that, I would end up with that, if you can see that, which would be a problem. Okay, so that's where I came up with the dimensions from. Now, I've already cut this because I thought it's a bit of a numpty thing and it's a waste of time showing you how to cut something with all these panels, but I will show you once how I do cut this card, because it is, I don't have a big cutter, I do it with a craft knife. So let's pull a cutting mat. I know I've got a cutting mat on the cutting mat, but this one I used to cut with, this one I don't. So this is just a spare piece of card. I usually work with a metal ruler and a sharp pencil. So say I wanted this to be 3 inches across, say. So I'd measure 3 inches at the top, 3 inches at the bottom, and then I would draw a line. Now, I know you're going, Ceri, this is obvious. You know what? For some people, maybe it's not obvious. My pencil just broke. So therefore, I have a line. Now, the thing to remember when you're cutting, because with boxes and like some card making stuff, you have to be really accurate. The measurement from there to this side of that drawn line is 3 inches. If you cut on the line, it's more than 3 inches. So when I cut, I will line my ruler up so it's on the inside of that line, so I can see the complete and total line. And then I will come in, so just do it, there you go. I've got a sharp blade and I will press down. I will do a couple of runs. I will always use a metal ruler, and I will always use a cutting mat, and I will always use common sense, and I will make sure I don't cut my fingers off. So as you can see, I've cut on the inside of this line, so therefore this is now an accurate measurement. Okay, I've cut it on an angle. You get the idea. Sorry, it's hard to cut when I'm looking through an iPad and not actually looking at it, but do you see what I mean? And I hope you do. Right, let's get rid of that because that's no longer needed, nor is any of that stuff. Let's clear this out the way. Right, let's get on and put this box together. Now, building the box can be a bit tricky because we've only got 2 hands. So what I tend to do is I tend to use washi tape to hold the structure together. So first things first, I've got loads of strips of washi over to that side already pre-cut, so that I know that I don't have to try and juggle the box and juggle bits of washi on a roll, and you get the meaning. So I'm just going to put these on the underneath of here. And what this has done, this is the inside of the box, by the way. This has actually put these in position, and I'll leave them on here all the way through the process. Now I'll come in with my side panel. There is an up on this, so when I'm looking at this, this is what I want it to look like. So when I do this, I always will double check that I've got the pattern in the right direction. So I will line this up with the edge of the box, and then I will pull my bit of washi tape upwards. Now once it's pulled up, I'll let it drop back down again, only because I don't want to try juggling everything all over the place. Right, these are pointing upwards, that's not a problem. I'll come in, I'll lay that bit of card down so it's flush with the ends, flush with the side. It's all in the right position, and I will pull up the sides and I'll let it flop back down. Okay, I'm going to turn it 360. I'm going to slide a piece of tape under each end. I mean, you could have done that earlier. Thinking about it, it probably would have been easier, but I don't know, I wasn't thinking properly. Oops, that's upside down tape. So, right, are we in shot? Still we're in shot. Okay, now this time I'm going to take this I'm going to lift up one of these edges and I'm going to put this down so it's flush with both the edge of the panel and the end of the box. And when I've got that all held in place there, I'm going to take another piece of washi and I'm just going to wrap it around the corner. Now, the reason I'm using washi is simply because if I've got it wrong, I can unpeel the washi. Okay, so make sure it's stuck down there. Right, let's get the other panel from this end. Put it in as I did the other one, flush up against both the side panel and the end of the base. And pull my washi up. Pull up the last panels. Wrap a bit of washi around for security. And go to a different colour washi for no other reason than I've just run out of washi in that colour. Wrap that around. And then we'll take a look so we can actually then double check everything is in the right position. So at this point your box is held together, and if you look, it should be flush all the way along. This isn't perfect, but that's probably my doing in my cutting. And just make sure I've got that. So let's just re-stick that again. Make sure that's up and solid. It's worth at this point just spending that little bit of extra time making sure everything fits. Now, if there are slight gaps, I don't overly worry because the entire thing is going to be wrapped. But we're looking to have everything at the same level at the top, everything at the same level at the bottom, the corners as square as I can possibly get them. And that's what we're looking to do. So hopefully you're all up to speed on that now. You can add as much washi as you want to hold this in place, okay? Don't get hung up on, oh, washi's going to come undone, because we're going to use another sort of tape when it comes to putting this together. So let's move this to one side. Ooh, do a quick check. All of the inside is the right pattern. Right, so that's my box. Now, I am going to be using duct tape. You could use bookbinding tape. You can use any tape you wish. I happen to find bookbinding duct tape is ultra sticky, and with the wrapping method that I have for covering the box with my gel prints, it's going to be completely concealed and not seen. So my first job is I'm going to lay this on one side. You can see it's a bit tricky. I'm going to get myself a pair of scissors that hopefully will cut through washi, through duct tape. You can tear the duct tape. So I need a piece that's, see if I can rip it easier. I can rip it easier out. Okay, let's see if I can get you in shot for this. So I'm just holding my piece of tape up to this and lay it on here about half on the top. Give it a gentle press down. Now I'm hoping to get my my duct tape to be the same length as the side, and then I'm using the pinch of my fingers just to pinch it together, and then I will give it a bit of a burnish. I won't be too brutal with it because I want to make sure that the whole box stays together while I'm assembling it, and then afterwards I can worry about pushing all together. But as you can see, I've now got a seal along there. I'm going to turn my box over and I'm going to repeat the process. Oh, duct tape is certainly the stickiest tape I know of. Again, laying it half on, half off. Get it in contact, pinching my finger and thumb together just to give myself a relatively sharp edge. Let's flip that up so I can press the bottom down into it. So this then gives me two sides of the box done. Now I'm not worried if the washi tape comes a little bit undone. We're beginning to secure everything in place. So right now I need to turn this up. Now this is where it's going to get really close for you. I need to do the same thing now across this edge. So as you can see, I'm giving myself a really substantial seal around the bottom of the box. Another reason I like duct tape too is, as far as I know, it doesn't lose its sticky. Let's pull this in so you can see what I'm doing. also, because it's got webbing within the duct tape, all of those fibres really add to the integrity of this drawing. Because remember, I'm putting signatures and journal covers and pages in here. Paper weighs heavy. So as you can see, this is getting more and more secure as I go along. Let's do this one more time on here. I'm also not going to fast forward bits of this. I'm going to try and keep it as much in real time as possible, because I've had many comments saying that you like that I keep it real and I don't fast forward, purely so it gives you some idea of how long something will take. So right, a little bit there is going to annoy me because it doubled back on itself and it didn't stick. There you go. So basically the bottom of my box is now sealed. I'm going to give it a good press down from above, just running my fingers along just to make sure that that's fully in contact around the bottom, which it now is. Now I'm going to work on these edges here, these corners. Now again, I'm going to tear myself a piece of tape that's that length, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the sides. Across the top. Now this time it's easier to hold the side and not do it all in one, so I can give it a bit of a vigorous press down. So as you can see, I've got this nicely covered. Now on the corners, the integrity of the box will be sound because we're going to wrap it. So let's do this on this piece here. Oh, that washi needs cutting now. Am I worried that I've gone all the way to the top? No, because I've got at least 2 layers of covering of my gel plates to go over the top of there. So no, I'm not worried that that's got a problem. I also don't worry about the top edge either, because that's going to be dealt with as we do the whole process. Right. This one needs to be cut down a bit, but that's because I've got a fold in the end. I did warn you this was a tricky thing to film, so hopefully it's not being too arduous to watch this. But this shows you exactly what my process is. Again, pinching it down. I think I've got one more to do. I've got one more to do. Now, I find that if I'm doing a box of any dimension that I'm constructing, and I would call this constructing, I like to cover the inside of the box before I assemble the box, purely because it's just easier. Now, I'm not worried about the sides of the box folding in. They're not going to when they're finally wrapped. So, right, enough of the duct tape. We're done with the duct tape. So, hopefully, does that all make sense? As you can see, I've written the dimensions on absolutely every side, so you can see what we're doing. Okay, so right, let's call that nicely wrapped, ready to go, and let's talk about the next stage. Now the next stage, I like to use heavy duty double-sided tape. I do have a couple of rolls of narrower double-sided tape just in case this is too wide and there's a gap left. The double-sided tape I'm using for me is something called Rhino double-sided tape, and it's for carpets. And believe me, this stuff is sticky. It is seriously sticky. I very often will use it to cover my journals with as well. If I'm putting fabric on or something like that, or paper onto my composition notebooks, this is what I will use. So I would recommend starting with the ends first. Just trust me, it's just easier. Now, I have an entire sheet of 12 by 12 here. We can see that it's way bigger. I want it bigger because I want this paper to wrap around the ends as well. Do I need it this deep? Probably not. So let's work from the other side. Okay, one thing I want to do, this is an inch wide ruler. Okay, it's a quilting ruler, but I'm only doing it with this ruler because it's easier for me to show you on screen without making dots and everything. So I'm going to draw a line 1 inch from the top. it will become apparent why when I actually show you. Was that straight? I tell you what, these varifocals don't half play with your eyeballs. Yes, it was straight. So now I know that I want this to be down from there. I would say probably, what is that measurement? Let's see if I can find something that will give me that measurement. Is that 4 inches? Let's call it 3 inches, right? I'm going to just put a mark here and here for 3 inches. 3 inches. 3 inches, right? I'm just going to cut that. I'm just going to whip down that with a craft knife. It's only a thin piece of cardstock. I'm not overly concerned that I'm going to be pressing down too hard. Just whip that along there. I think I'm warming up for a new blade. I am warming up for a new blade. I do use knives a lot. This strip, I keep it to one side. I can use it for something in the future. Now, as there are 2 ends to this box, guess what? We're going to do the same thing on this one. And why measure twice when I've actually got a piece of card that's exactly the same size? So I'm just going to use that as a guide, because this isn't a precise measurement and doesn't have to be. Come on, you can do it. There you go. Again, scrap. Now these may become tags, they may become journal cards, they may become something else in the future. They're not required for this process. So I'm just going to put the 1 inch line down here as well. Am I in shot? Near enough in shot. Okay, right. This is for the other end, this is for this end. If it was directional, I would have to decide which is top and which is bottom. This isn't. I made this design completely and utterly non-directional. Let's put this box out of the way. It might be shading the light. Okay, now what I want to do now is I'm going to completely cover this entire panel with this. Now this is, I want to say it's 2 inches. It's 2 inches wide. So I don't know what this measurement is. I will show you what I do, but then we'll take it from there. So I'm going to put this, I want to make sure it goes all the way to the edge, both at the top and the side. That wasn't the best of jobs, was it? A lot of that is due to not being able to see through the camera. Actually, if I redraw that line, sorry, I do need it to go all the way to the edge, and it doesn't matter which is up and which is down here, so I'm not overly concerned. I'm going to put a mark here just so that I know that that's the new top. So I've got one at the top and one at the bottom, and I do that because, I'll just do this so I can actually see it, guys. It's a bit tricky when you're not looking through the camera. Not looking at it in real life, you're looking through the camera. It gets a little bit distorted. I find cutting the ends with the knife far easier than cutting them with the scissors. Just run that along there. Now I'm going to continue down this so that the entire thing is covered in the double-sided tape. I find this far easier than dealing with Mod Podge, dealing with any of the liquid glues, and that purely is because I don't have to have a drying time. Once it's on, it's on. There are disadvantages to this, as in it's on, it's on. What is that under there? Sorry, I've got a bit of tape folded under itself. Hopefully that won't cause me a problem. I don't think it will. Right. As I said, I work from both sides to the middle because as you can see, this is that wide, this isn't. So this is where I would grab a different piece of double-sided tape in width just to do a strip down the middle. So I've got one that's almost the same width. I'm not going to panic about it totally, but if I put a different width down the middle. Now, you could be using a glue with this. You could absolutely be using a glue. But as I said, I just tend to do it this way purely because I want to make sure that it's on there, and it's on there for good. So as you can see, we've got it done now. I'm just going to use my knife, and this is where you've got to be a bit careful because this tape is really sticky. It will stick to you and anything else it touches. So just pop this off there. Now I'm just going to do one end completely from start to finish, and then I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to do the other end because you don't need to see it twice, because if you want to see it again you can always just rewind the video. Let's pull this one off here. Actually, that's the bit that was causing me a lump. I want that bit gone. I don't want any bubbles under my paper. It looks like it's got a little bit there that didn't come off. So, right. So we have our piece ultra sticky, ultra ready. You have one go at this, okay? I'm going to take my box and I'm going to take the end, and this edge has to line up with this drawn line. Try and get it in the middle, but don't get fixated on it. So hopefully I'm doing this on the side. I would normally do it facing me. So I'm going to come down. Right. So press that down. So as you can see, the edge of the box is in line with the line I've got there. Okay. Now this is going to get a bit tricky where I'm trying to show you in this light. So let's take this cutting board under here, might give it a bit of an angle for you to see. Now, there's my knife gone. We have to take into consideration the width of the cardboard, also this surface. If I was to cut this here so it folds on the inside and then fold around the outside, I would end up with that little square exposed. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to eyeball this. I'm going to cut a line towards me and then a line on the outside. So what this has done, don't fold it yet, is it's given me this piece here. I'm struggling to show you guys. If I just stick it in place, it's more easily seen. Right, as you can see, this piece is now attached to the top of the box. It's purely an aesthetic thing. It makes it look better when it's finished. So again, cut that and cut that, and then I'm trying not to put the box on a surface because I don't want it sticking to itself prematurely. I do need to change this blade. Right, so the situation so far is I've cut those two pieces, and as you can see, I've laid them across the top of the box. Let's see if I can do this with you seeing it. So now this edge needs to be folded in here. The reason I measured it an inch, and I'm going to do that on every single one of them, is so that it goes down inside the box by the exact amount every time. So I'm going to come in, use my fingers just to wedge it up, and then work my way down and press this down as hard as I can. Can you see me? Hopefully you can. As hard as I can, working it down so then it's fully in contact with the inside of the box. So therefore that's given me a really nice clean seal, and it's covered up the top edge. Right, I'm going to turn the box around. Now when it comes to this, I'm going to cut here and I'm going to cut here. And I'm going to do this in line with the box. Excuse the silence, I'm just focusing on what I'm doing here. Okay, so we've cut a flap there, we've cut a flap there. Now I'm going to cut a slight angle here from that point to about there, just because if I don't, I have found that when I put the bottom in place, it actually can sometimes stick over the edge. And that causes a whole nother load of problems there. So let's just stick that on there. I'll lift this up for you in a second, guys, just so you can see what I'm doing, if you're not already seeing what I'm doing. You can see how I was a bit hesitant about doing this, can't you? I just wasn't sure how much you were going to be able to see. Tidy that a little bit out of there. A little bit out of there. There you go. So, as you can see, I've now got a bit that will fold up. I've got this piece here, this piece here. I've cut these on angles so that they don't stick over the edge. Now, what I'm going to do, how can I do this? I'm trying to hold it in midair for you. I'm going to get that off there for a start. I'm going to work this over the edge so that it folds up. As soon as you've got one edge up, it becomes a lot easier because I can now put the box on its side. And I'm going to use my thumb and I'm going to rub this along here until it's on there. Now, you will note that you've got this little piece here that's going to get caught on the edge of there. We've got to deal with that. So what I'm going to do again, this time I'm going to cut a sliver off here, the width of this cardboard. Now, there may be other ways of doing this, guys. This is just the way I do it for my boxes. And believe me, I have more boxes than you can shake a stick at that I've covered. So, and none of them have let me down. I'm going to do the same here again. And all I'm doing is I'm cutting it so that it becomes loose, and then I'm trimming it off at the end as well, because I want it to go inside the box nice and cleanly. Right, so now we've now got these edges. This is the reason why that flap is there, because if I push this over the top and on the inside, then you can see I don't have an exposed corner here. Or I shouldn't have an exposed corner here. I must have ripped the paper while I did that. Let's do it over this side. Can you see this? I'm pressing this down. So this gives me a nice solid end, and also these layers wrapping around here are really helping support this. Now when it comes to the sides of the base, I'm going to fold the side shorter pieces in. Fold that shorter piece in, and then this piece will fold. Why are you sticking? Right, that could happen to you, so let's deal with it. This I must have cut on an angle or not cut straight, so let's just take that off, or it's going to cause me a problem in the long run. I want it to be the flush along the side of that box, and I'm going to fold this bit over the top. I tend to run my finger and thumb along it until it starts to fold, and then it goes in. The best way to flatten this is from the inside, because with all of the pressure you're putting on this, you're getting it right down. I'm annoyed at that corner. I spent so much time getting that right. If you ever have a corner that doesn't quite look right when it's finished, see the colours you've got in here, just dab a little paint on there with a sponge and you will find that it'll neaten it up and no one will ever know the difference unless you're like me and the world has watched your video. So that's how I do the end of a box. So I'm now going to pause you, because I now need to do the other end, which will be a darn sight easier and quicker without you watching. So I'll be back in 2 seconds for you, just while I get this done. So here I'm back again. I've done the same process to do the other end. Actually, these corners worked out exactly the way I should have done. This is where I scraped a bit of the paper off. Anyway, you get it. So that's those done. Now what I've done is I've jumped ahead a little bit to save time, because I try not to repeat processes unless it's important to repeat processes. So I've taken my next two 12x12s. I've done the 1 inch line as I did before using this, and I've cut 3 inches off the bottom so that these are the same. Now, there is another measurement you have to be really considerate of at this point. Now, if I was to try and fit these 12x12s into this box, even though it's a 12 inch long box, they're not going to fit, because I need to take into consideration these. So what I need to do is I need to take off twice the width of that, which we know is 2, so it's 4 millimeters. So I'm just going to come in. Now I would normally, as I said, work with my guillotine on this, so hopefully my measurement is going to be as accurate as it can be. I'm just going to do this with a knife. I will, however, check that it fits into the box before I actually start doing the next stage. Let's run the knife down there. A little bit too small is never a problem. A little bit too large is a problem. Right, so that's taken those off. So best to do a really quick check. Will these fit in the box? They fit into the box. So as I said, I don't mind if they're a little bit shy. That's completely fine, because don't forget, the edges have already been covered. The corners have already been covered by the end pieces. So let's put that to one side. It's beginning to snow again here, guys. So it's getting a bit more dark and overcast. So hopefully the quality of this video isn't dropping. So this again is a repeat process, but it's one I think you'll bear with me for a few seconds just while I get this done. Again, I need to put this double-sided tape completely over this. I've done it again, haven't I? It's just trying to see through the camera while you do it. So I'm going to have to... Is that going to bother me? It is going to bother me. I'll just do what I did before and change the end to another end. There's always a way to fix it. So if I put that as a top, I know that's now the top. Let's do it. See if I can do it on an angle. Maybe that will make it easier for me. Actually, it did make it easier for me. Note to self, remember that for future videos. Now, this is the method I'm using to cover this box, which I made. I would use the same process for covering any box that I made. So if you've got an existing box and you're just going to cover it, I would use the same tape method. I would use the same piece that wraps over the top of the top edge. Unless, of course, you're going to collage it or cover it in book page, something along those lines. If you're just covering something, this is the process I always use. And purely because I know it works. I mean, this is how I've always done it. Let's take that blade so I don't stab myself. This is how I've always done it. And as I said, not any of my boxes have ever fallen apart or given up the will to live. They've lasted me years and years. Right, we've got the one strip down the middle. Hopefully I've been in shot for all of this because I'm trying to watch the work and not the camera. Let's just tidy that bit off. Now this is going to be far easier to do than the ends were. Okay, so make sure we give that a bit of a press down. And then peel off the backings. I have found with this tape that the easiest thing to do is use a sharp blade to catch the edge. I can't seem to catch it with my fingernails. Some people do use a pin or a scribing tool to catch it. I just find a sharp blade, probably because I used to be a chef and I'm used to using knives. I tend to reach for a knife more than I would probably reach for scissors, to be honest with you. But that's just me. That's not everyone's kettle of fish. Let's just get... Am I in shot? I am in shot. Come on, off you come. Right, this is one that's going to be tricky for me. I'm going to have to do this facing me, guys, and it's going to have to look a little dark because I have to line the edges of this paper up with the inside edges of the box. Okay, once I put it in place, I'll lift it up and show it to you to explain exactly what I'm doing. But this is one of those instances where I'm sorry, I have to do this my way. I can't do it facing the light. So what I'm intending to do is this edge here will be on this line here, and this edge will be in line with the inside of there, the other edge inside of there. So bear with me, this is going to be a bit tricky for you to see, and as I said, I'm ultra apologetic about it, but there ain't nothing I can do about it. Right, give it a bit of a press down. So as you can see, they're on the inside. Now, I was very generous with my cut. If I'd used a guillotine, I would have got less of that exposed, but I'm not worried because I've already got the covering on the inside. So I'm going to do as I did before, which is using my thumbs, I'm going to work this up. Let's see if I can do this with some sort of light. It's really hard on this angle. So I'm just working my way along. I don't start at one end and work my way along. I work back and forth, back and forth. Otherwise, you may end up with a crease. And then when I'm close to sticking it down, I'll press it down in the middle and press it towards the edges. Okay, so therefore we've got that really nice line all around the inside of our box. Our side is down. Last bit for this particular part of the process is I start to curve it over. I'm almost weakening the fibres of the paper as I'm pressing it down so that I don't end up with lumps and bumps in it. Now we will be putting a base on here again, a piece that covers it all, so I don't want all these joins, because if you look at this now, this end has a wraparound, this has a wraparound, this whole corner has 3 layers of card supporting it. So I'm just going to come in from the inside, give that a good press. Now, I am once again going to stop you for 2 seconds, and I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll come back and we'll finish off the base, and then we should be done totally. So I'm liking it so far. I'm loving the pattern on it. I love the colour, but then I chose them, so I should like them. So bear with me, guys. I'll be back to you in 2 seconds, and then we'll talk about how I deal with the base of this. There's a couple of things to think about. Let's put it that way. So back in 2, guys. Okay, guys, that's one side, one end, one side, one end. So all we've got to deal with is a base now. Now, I always put one complete panel across here for a couple of reasons. These folded pieces have given me more integrity on these seams. The box is probably never going to be seen from underneath unless I've dropped it. But I like one complete piece to tie it all together. But before I do that, I need to point out the method we've just done will always give you a thin line down the edges. I choose to do the ends first because the end on my bookcase is what's going to be sticking out. I'm never going to see these. If this is something that really does bother you, maybe get some washi tape and fold it around the edge. Gel print a separate coloured piece, whatever. It's never bothered me. So, right, the inside's solid. We've got a good solid box now. I now need to work out the dimensions for this. So let me just grab a pencil and grab a ruler. So we know my box is 12 inches long. It is fractionally longer than 12 inches now, of course, because we've added the 2 millimeters. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this 11 3/4 long. And let's see what the side to side is. This is actually 6 3/4, so I'm going to call it 6 1/2. Okay, so my measurements for the base are going to be 11 3/4 by 6 1/2. So I just need to cut that from this piece of paper. Now, if you're really precious about this, you could always use just a random piece of scrap card. I like to cover the whole box. It's just me being a little precious, but I like to do that. So it's 11 3/4. It hardly seems cutting that little bit off the end is worth it, but believe me, what it does is it stops it being caught when you're sliding things on and off a shelf. So am I in shot? I am in shot. So I'm just going to trim this down to 11 3/4. And we're almost there, guys. I'll be eager to see what this looks like when I edit it, because I have absolutely no idea what this is going to look like. Right, 6 1/2 this way. 6 1/2. Now, I did make 6 sheets of this background paper, and I made 6 sheets of it for one reason only. Number one, I like to have a spare just in case I mess it up. Don't do that right. I'm too busy talking. 6 1/2. I felt that was wrong. 6 1/2, not 6 3/4. See, it's worth measuring twice, cutting once, because I would have messed that one up. So what was I saying? Yeah, so I had a spare just in case I messed something up, but also I really like this background, so I've now got a background of this as well, which is really nice. Now, if I wanted to put card dividers into this, you know, like big file folder cards to slip in, I could actually use these scraps to create dividers, but I'm probably going to just turn these into tags and journal cards because I think these are lovely. And when you reckon out of the 5 pieces, I would say that's probably at least 2 journal tags, 2 tags, 2 tags, 8 tags, 8 tags and probably 3 journal cards. So you might see those in the future in one of my journals. Gosh, it's really, really snowing out there. I'm glad I'm not at work. That's all I can say. Right, I'm going to do the same as I've done with the others. I'm going to put this tape on. I'm going to leave the video running because it's going to be quite a quick job to do this. I do want to make sure that it goes all the way to the end and all the way to the edges because I don't want anything catching. There's that knife gone. Now, just to give you an idea, I have made a box roughly this size before, and one roll of tape has done that box and this box. So know that it's potentially one roll of tape will do 2 large boxes, and you'll probably find it in your hardware store. I mean, we've got inexpensive stores here in the UK, and this roll cost me, I think it was £1.69, which is probably close to $2 in the States if you're stateside. Couldn't tell you for hide nor hair of New Zealand, Australia and other parts of the world, but just know that, so it's about £1.60, £1.70 for me to cover the 2 boxes, and I'll probably have a bit left over. Right, how wide was that? This. Let's use a slimmer one. I've got a thin one here. Now I'm not overly worried about the bottom. Gravity alone is going to hold this in place. Right, all the tape is done. Let's get out of my way because I know I'm going to stick myself to something. Right. Last, oh, did I shake you? Sorry, I moved everything with that wipe, didn't I? Why is it the heavy duty stuff is the stuff that comes off easily, and the craft type stuff, the double-sided tape, is one that causes me issues? And it's because it's so thin. Famous last word, so he struggles with that. Okay. Now, we know this is an instant stick. I know someone in the comments is going to say, oh, if you put PVA glue on it, it'll give you some wiggle time before you press it down. Yes, I understand. I know that's a possibility, but to be honest with you, that's just adding moisture to my box. And the reason I'm using this in the first place is I didn't want to use moisture in the box, because as soon as I put this piece on, I can actually use it. Right, this is very much an eyeball thing. So you have to be a little bit confident as to where you're going to place this. And once it's down, it's down. So now this has got several layers of everything on it. One more thing that I do is I have these little felt dots. I pick them up when I see them. We can buy a whole bag of them for like £1. I like to put these on the bottom of my boxes for no other reason than they slide around quite well on my shelves, so I'm pulling something in or out. Also, this is acrylic paint. Acrylic paint turns into a kind of plastic when it's finished. And what I find is sometimes with it, these are sticky by the way, so I don't need glue or anything. Sometimes what I find is they will stick to a shelf. And if you've Mod Podged your box, say you wanted to protect this box further, which I'm happy with this, you could go one step further and paint Mod Podge all over this, and it would give it a nice sheen and protect it a bit longer. I'm not worried about that. But I've found that if I put these little feet on, nothing ever sticks to the shelves. So, right. So basically, we're done. That's one box. Hopefully that wasn't painful to watch. I've done my best to make sure it wasn't. As you can see, we've got a nicely lined box. I like wrapping that around the top so you've got no raw edges. I do have this one little corner which is going to really bug me, but what I'm going to do once I'm off screen is I'm just going to get a little bit of the colour that I use and just tap it down with a bit of paint and it'll be done. So hopefully that was all right, guys. Bit of a tricky make to make on a small screen, but the best I can. I will see you next time. I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's Ceri the Crafter. Until next time, bye bye now.